You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm, no schedule, no place you need to be. For roughly 300,000 years, this wasn't a hypothetical. This was every single night for almost the entire span of human existence. Today, over a third of adults report chronic sleep problems. Something has clearly gone wrong. But what if the problem was never sleep itself? What if the problem is the clock? Your body runs on an ancient timer. Scientists call it the circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour internal clock that tells your organs when to work and when to rest. It doesn't care about your job. It doesn't care about your phone. It only cares about light and darkness, the same two signals it has responded to since before humans existed. For most of history, that clock was the only schedule anyone had, and that clock didn't run the same length all year. In winter, when nights stretched long and dark, ancient humans likely slept longer. In summer, when daylight lingered, sleep compressed into a shorter window. There was no fixed target to hit, no number glowing on a nightstand telling you that you'd failed. There was only the sky, expanding and contracting the hours available for rest, season after season, decade after decade. So how did early humans actually sleep? Not in neat 8-hour blocks, not at the same time every night, and definitely not alone. Was there even such a thing as a bedtime? Not in the way you think of one. In 2015, sleep researcher Jerome Siegel led a landmark study published in the journal Current Biology. His team fitted members of 3 modern hunter-gatherer and forager societies with sleep trackers: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of the Kalahari Desert, the Tsimane of the Bolivian Amazon. None of these groups have electricity. None of them have alarm clocks, and none of them sleep the way sleep experts once assumed ancient humans did. The data surprised almost everyone. These groups slept an average of just under 6.5 hours a night. That number alone breaks the popular myth that early humans lounged around for 9 or 10 hours of untroubled rest. But the real discovery wasn't the number. It was the shape of the sleep itself. Siegel's team also tracked something else: body temperature. Across all 3 groups, sleep consistently began as body temperature was already falling, not after people decided it was bedtime. Nobody needed a wind-down routine or a sleep aid. The body simply cooled, and sleep followed. The same mechanism that still governs your nights today, whether you notice it or not. Almost none of the participants napped during the day, and almost none of them complained of insomnia, a word that, by some measures, barely exists in their languages. Sleep, for these communities, wasn't a hard block. It was flexible. It bent around temperature, around firelight, around the needs of the group. People drifted off and woke again through the night, sometimes tending a fire, sometimes just lying awake in the dark before sleep pulled them back under. Nobody panicked about it. Nobody reached for their phone to check the time. Waking in the night wasn't a disorder. It was just night. Historian A. Roger E. Kirch found something strikingly similar, but centuries later and an ocean away. Digging through European court records, diaries, and medical texts from before the industrial era, he uncovered a pattern he called segmented sleep. People across pre-industrial Europe routinely slept in 2 distinct chunks, separated by an hour or more of quiet waking time in the middle of the night. That gap had a name. It was called the watch. People used it to pray, to talk, to have sex, to think. Then they went back to sleep until dawn. Why does this matter? Because it means your ancestors weren't fighting their bodies to force 8 uninterrupted hours. They were listening to them. Waking at 2 a.m. wasn't insomnia. It was Tuesday. Was that gap in the night wasted time? Not even close. It was simply time, folded quietly into the middle of rest instead of squeezed out of it. Now picture it. You are lying beside a small fire as the sky above you turns from orange to deep indigo. There is no roof, only stars. The group around you is a mix of relatives, some already asleep, some talking low, a child curled against an elder's side. You doze. You wake once when someone adds wood to the fire. You doze again. There is no wrong way to do this. There is no clock counting down to a morning alarm. Your only obligation is to wake when your body says wake. Somewhere in the middle of the night, you surface. Not from a nightmare, not from noise, just naturally. The way a wave rises and falls without needing a reason. The fire has burned low. Someone nearby is quietly talking to a child who woke frightened. You watch the coals for a while. You listen to the wind move through the grass. Then, without deciding to, you drift back under. In the morning, nobody asks if you slept through the night. Nobody measures your rest against a number. The question, if anyone asks anything, is simply whether you feel ready for the day. And the day itself will tell you if the answer was yes. This is where anthropologist Carol Worthman's research becomes essential. She has spent decades studying sleep across cultures that never adopted the industrial 9 to 5, and one theme keeps surfacing. Sleep for most of human history was never a private, solitary act. It was social. People slept in groups, near a fire, within arm's reach of someone else. That closeness did more than keep people warm. It kept them safe. A predator moving through camp, a snapped twig, a strange sound, could wake several people at once, not just one exposed sleeper. Group sleep was a survival system disguised as rest. This is where the story takes its counterintuitive turn. You might assume that solid, uninterrupted, 8-hour sleep in a private, quiet, dark room is the biological gold standard, the way sleep is supposed to work. It isn't. That version of sleep is remarkably new. It's a product of electric lighting, private bedrooms, work shifts, and clocks, not of human biology. Your ancestors weren't sleeping worse than you. In many ways, they were sleeping in a form your body still recognizes, even if your modern life won't allow it. Consider what changed. The light bulb arrived in the late 1800s. Suddenly, night could be pushed back by hours. Factories needed workers to show up at a fixed time, not whenever their bodies naturally woke. The idea of the watch, that quiet hour of wakefulness in the middle of the night, started to look like a problem instead of a normal biological rhythm. People who woke at 3 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep began to be told something was wrong with them. In truth, something was wrong with the schedule they were being forced into, not with their bodies. Chronobiologist Till Roenberg has spent his career studying what happens when your internal clock and your social clock stop agreeing with each other. He gave the mismatch a name: social jet lag. It's the exhaustion you feel not from crossing time zones, but from living two schedules at once. One set by your body, another set by an alarm clock, a commute, and a job that doesn't care what time your ancestors would have woken. Roenberg's research links chronic social jet lag to higher rates of obesity, mood disorders, and cardiovascular strain. Your ancestors never had two clocks fighting each other. They only ever had one. Here's the twist most people never hear. Segmented sleep may not be a flaw in the human system. It may be a feature that our environment simply erased. When researchers put modern volunteers in rooms with no artificial light for weeks at a time, mimicking ancient night conditions, many of them spontaneously reverted to two-phase sleep, with a period of quiet wakefulness in between. Their bodies remembered a pattern their culture had forgotten. Now think about your own nights. If you've ever woken at 2 or 3 a.m., and immediately felt a spike of anxiety, worried you were broken, worried you'd never fall back asleep, worried about the exhausted day ahead, consider this. For most of human history, that exact moment wasn't a crisis. It was completely ordinary. Your ancestors used it to sit with their thoughts by firelight. You could use it that way too. Instead of reaching for a phone that floods your eyes with the one thing your circadian clock is built to react to: light. None of this means you should abandon a schedule entirely. Modern life runs on shared time, and there's real value in a consistent routine. But the panic, the shame, the 3 a.m. dread that something is medically wrong with you, that part deserves a second look. Your body isn't malfunctioning when it wakes in the dark. It's running software that is roughly 300,000 years old, tested across nearly every environment on Earth, and only recently told it was doing something wrong. There's an irony to how far this has gone. Many people now sleep with a tracker strapped to their wrist, chasing a perfect score, an ideal number of deep sleep minutes, a badge for a flawless night. Sleep researchers have a name for the anxiety this creates: orthosomnia, an obsession with achieving perfect sleep that ends up making sleep worse. Your ancestors never graded their nights. They simply lived them, woke when they woke, and moved on with the day. The irony is almost too clean. The device meant to fix your sleep may be doing to your mind exactly what the factory clock once did to your body. There's also the matter of who you sleep near. Ancient humans almost never slept in true isolation. Modern sleep science increasingly agrees that co-sleeping, whether with a partner, a family member, or even in the same room as others, correlates with lower stress hormones, and for many people, better sleep quality overall. The empty, silent single bedroom that modern culture treats as the ideal sleep environment would have looked, to your ancestors, less like comfort and more like exposure. Think about the sounds that fill a modern bedroom: a refrigerator humming, a neighbor's car pulling in. Silence, real silence, is a surprisingly recent invention, and for most of human history, it was never the goal. A quiet fire, low voices, the occasional shift of another body nearby, these were the sounds sleep was built around. Total silence and total isolation may feel like luxury today, but to a nervous system shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of group sleep, that same silence can register as something closer to vigilance. Alone in a dark, silent room, part of your brain may still be listening for a fire that isn't there and a group that isn't beside you. And what about the midday slump that hits so many people around 1 or 2 in the afternoon? That dip isn't laziness, and it isn't a modern invention either. It maps closely onto a second, smaller circadian low that shows up in cultures around the world, the same biological dip behind the traditional afternoon rest, still practiced across parts of the Mediterranean, Latin America, and beyond. Your ancestors likely leaned into that dip instead of fighting through it with a 4th cup of coffee. The urge to close your eyes at your desk in the early afternoon isn't a personal failing. It's a clock that predates your job by a few 100,000 years. So what does any of this mean for you, lying in bed tonight, staring at a ceiling instead of a sky full of stars? It means the sleep your body wants may not match the sleep your culture expects. It means waking in the night isn't evidence that something is broken. It means the deep, unbroken 8-hour block you've been chasing might be less natural than the version of sleep that bends, drifts, and resets itself around a fire that no longer exists but that your biology hasn't forgotten. You wake up when your body is ready. For nearly all of human history, that sentence described a full night, not a broken one. Somewhere between the campfire and the alarm clock, we decided that sleeping the way your ancestors did for 300,000 years was a disorder instead of a design.